right. It's Thursday morning. It is already the 8th of September. Yeah, you look at that calendar and you're like, oh my God, yes. It's just basically September, October, November, and then December is just a blur. And then before you know it, it's 2023. Right?
Like, is the world spinning faster? Do you
Hang on,
feel
let me
that way
turn
sometimes?
this music down. Hang on, I can't hear you. Hold on. You were saying?
Do you feel like the world is spinning faster?
Oh, I don't know. So the last 2 days, I've been so sick. I got out of bed yesterday once. I got out of bed once to feed myself, the dog, to have a shower, and I just went straight back to sleep afterwards. I felt like absolute shit. I don't know what's wrong with me. But hopefully I'll be feeling better today. I already feel much better this morning than I did yesterday. And we'll see how it goes. No, well, you get sick. It happens to people from time to time. You just got to get on with it. No one cares. Nobody cares. You don't have to.
Gareth, we care. We absolutely care.
I'm not asking for.
Absolutely care. It's
not
sympathy.
Pums, I wasn't fishing for sympathy, I promise.
It's not sympathy. I just want you to know that we love you and we care.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. Thanks so much. Okay, we got the birding platform a little bit later on. It's going to be a fun morning. We've got two return champions. We've got Leeto Nthoba, who obviously has been with us many times. He's from the Central University of Technology. He's a debater and a socio-political analyst. He's also very interested in the subject at hand, which is something a lot of people have been asking you and me to talk about at length. I did a little monologue on it the other day when the court handed down its finding in the hate speech matter, the kill the farmer matter. So we've got Ernst Roets from AfriForum on as well. He's the deputy CEO of AfriForum. He's been on before. He's also the head of policy and action at the Civil Rights Group. So we're going to have those two on, and we'll have a nice, lively, I think, debate about what is hate speech and about what kind of speech should we be protected against. We weak, feeble South Africans. What kind of speech hurts us at our deepest and innermost core? Or do we need to protect against people actually inciting violence? Those are the real arguments at the heart of this discussion. And people have been asking whether you or I have strong views on this. Well, wait and see, because yes, we do. Yes, we do. So that's going to be loads of fun.
Of course we do.
Yeah,
I do want to say, though, that it has come to my attention, Gareth, that there are people listening to this show who think I make things up. We spoke last week. We spoke last week about what's his name? Some Tara. Does samosa eating.
Yes.
Just before, somebody sent me a inbox in one of the various things, right? Saying he thought I made that up, and when he saw the video, it was even funnier. I just want you to know, everybody listening to the show, I do not make things up. They may sound ridiculous, but that is because ridiculous things are happening all around us. Like Cyril Ramaphosa cutting a ribbon for a pothole fixing.
He didn't. Really? Did he really?
How did you miss that picture? There's a whole picture of Cyril and all these people standing around a pothole that's like...
No, Pumi.
I am not making... Just know that I'm not making it up.
Well, let's see if Ryan can find that for us while we're busy this morning. But here's one thing I did see on Twitter, which I thought was hilarious. Because they do ribbon cutting ceremonies for seemingly anything. Here they put in a tap. All right, so this is in. I can't remember.
So it looks like this. The picture actually looks like this, but there's a pothole, and Cyril is there looking at the pothole.
They put in this one tap, and they opened it, and finally, they were all there to celebrate. Look at them all celebrating. It's unbelievable.
Is that Paul Mashatile? No, it's not.
I'm not sure who it is, but there's the one who was the former Minister of Intelligence. You remember him under Jacob Zuma? He's sort of the one wearing the light-colored shirt without a jacket.
With the head with the those with
his brain on the outside. Yeah, his brain on the
That
outside.
freaks me
That
out.
one. It's freaky, right?
It freaks me out. That like
I can't
hate.
remember what his
And
name
then,
is though. He's
like, why
disappeared
don't
from my
they
memory
grow
banks.
their, like, I wish he would grow his hair. Like people who have that, like,
Mm,
if you just grow your hair on your head.
couldn't agree more. So while I was lying in bed yesterday, I was scrolling through social media. I did see a lot of stupid stuff. So I blocked most of that from my memory because when I'm not feeling well, I don't take in that kind of information. There, there were some funny things going on. Like for some reason, there was quite a lot of talk about politics yesterday, and I didn't know why. Do you know why? Do you know why that certain subjects were trending?
I don't even know what was trending yesterday because yesterday I was on a trade visit with one of
Oh,
my clients, and we were like going from Shabin to Shabin. Actually, I
oh
was on a
wow,
bit of a pub crawl.
nice, Pumi. That's not a bad way to spend your day. No, it was all about Brian Molefe. He was very much in the
Shit.
news here. Shame.
Was he in court again? Or there was that just another catch and release?
Again, I'm not sure because I didn't bother to even go and look it up. I was like, whatever, you know, not even that
Oh.
interested. Yeah. So I'm very disengaged from this stuff at the moment, and it could be because I'm not feeling great. But I'll be back in it when we come to the burning platform a bit later on. You can let us know what
So
you think.
I'm looking at what's trending now and I see baked beans are trending.
Oh, good. Okay, so obviously the really important stuff has gone to the top of the agenda again this morning. You see, this is why you've got to really feel sorry for these companies that base their entire media and marketing strategy on trending. You know, um, these companies that tell their marketing department, if you don't pay attention to what's going on and trending on Twitter, then we're not going to do well because we have to be trending. For them, the most important thing is to be trending positively. They don't realize that to trend positively on Twitter, even if you gave each South African 10,000 Rand, you wouldn't trend positively on Twitter. Um, you would have to do some miracle
Yeah.
that you'd have to bring down loaves and fishes from heaven to get that kind of positive trending. But it's amazing to me how many companies put this into their strategy. They're like, we have to trend. It's important for us to trend. And I feel like saying to them, you guys sure you want to do that? Because you know it's going to go badly for you, right? You know it's not a good idea to trend. It's usually a very dangerous thing.
Wow. So Stink Mina ZA says Eskom
Mm.
recovered the pension payout made to Brian Molefe.
Oh, so you paid back that money?
How? How? Last week he was like arguing with the judge about not being able to pay back the 50,000 to pay the 50,000 Rand bail.
Huh.
And now suddenly he's paid like the
Huh.
whole millions of his
Well, good. I mean, we'll take it, right? So where does that money go? Back into the fiscus? Do we
well,
know?
back to Eskom.
Oh, go back to Eskom. All right. Well, then
Into
maybe
the
we can
Eskom pension fund.
all get a 20 cents reduction in our bill this month. That would be nice. All right. There are a couple of voice notes for the show for this morning. You want to hear some of those?
Voice notes. Do we
Oh,
have a
wait.
voice notes jingle?
Oh, wait. I found your Cyril picture of him fixing the pothole. Hang on a second. This is too good. This is too good to just breeze past. Sorry. Here it is. All right. Are you ready? So great. This was in Delmas in Mpumalanga. All right.
Bless
Oh,
you.
Jesus. All right. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. This is our president fixing a pothole, or not even fixing it himself, just leaning over and checking it out, like he's going to know whether it's been put in properly or not. Like suddenly he's a structural engineer. Okay, you ready? There's the big moment. Dun, da, da, da. There he is, Silili, looking at a pothole with his ANC hat on. Isn't that great? Make you feel like we're on the right track? All right. So yes, the story is that, and here it is. We've got the whole story about Brian Molefe. They have recovered 30 million Rand that was unlawfully paid to his pension fund. That would have been a nice pension for him, hey? Sure. He would have done really well out of that. I mean, 30 million
No.
rand, that pays quite nicely, doesn't it? And that was over and
No.
above what he was already owed. Um, so,
That money would have been squandered, and we know this because one of the stories that came out after Brian Molefe left Eskom with that pension payout, early payout, was something about him fighting for like a 50,000 Rand veterans kind of payout as well, monthly. Like, uh, these people, these people.
well, it says here Eskom said it had fully recovered millions which are illegally paid to him. Molefe resigned in 2016 and took early retirement from the utility. However, millions were at stake. But the DA and the trade union Solidarity took the matter to court. Again, thank you very much to all these organizations that are using the courts to recover money that belongs to people in South Africa that it isn't in the accounts of. So well done. In this case, the credit goes to the DA and Solidarity. In January 2018, the North Gauteng High Court ordered the former CEO to pay back the millions used for his pension, a ruling which was reinforced in July this year. In a brief statement, Eskom confirmed that it had recovered the 30 million rand and said it would not be commenting any further on the matter. So what do you think of that? You say it would have been squandered anyway.
I don't know. I don't know.
All right.
I don't think I believe it, but anyway.
All right. Jean says that that road that Cyril was looking at, it's a gravel road in any case. So why are they even? It looks like it could be a tar road.
It's a tar road. It is a tar road. It's just badly. It's like not swept.
It's in very
not
poor
kept up.
condition. I mean, it's in terrible condition, right? So either way, it's really bad. A couple
But
of
what
other
is
comments.
Cyril doing? What is Cyril doing in that picture? Like everything about that picture is just like his eyes are out like this. He's leaning into the thing. I was just like,
Oh,
and
we've got very smart listeners. Sanela's just reminded me that guy in the picture was David Mahlobo. Remember him? And Sanela says, if you heard him speak, I can't believe that guy was in charge of our country's intelligence. Steve says maybe Cyril was checking if there was hidden money in the pothole, like in his sofas. Yeah. Big Balls Sibanda says, I love that name. Last week's burning platform was a bit hard to listen to with Pumi interrupting the ANC guy. Oh, really? You think Pumi was interrupting him? If she hadn't interrupted
I think we
him,
need rules.
he might have fallen asleep.
This is the thing. This is what I learned about myself last week. I actually tweeted about it. I think I have learned over the years as I've grown older to be less emotional. So I don't get as angry as I used to, or any of those kinds of, so like my emotions are in check. But my God, last week I realized that I actually have a patience issue. I have an issue with, I don't think as I get older, I think my tolerance for bullshit gets less. And
Well,
so
I
I
appreciate
just
it.
have no
I must be honest
patience.
with you. So I don't have a problem with people interrupting, especially when someone is droning. Now, I do want him to come back. Dada Morero is his name. He's the
But we
head of
need
the ANC.
parameters.
Yeah,
We
we
need
need parameters.
parameters for
Listen,
him. He
if
can
you're gonna
only
if you're gonna drone and be boring for like 10-minute blocks, which is kind of what we were trending towards with him, and it's driving everyone in the audience crazy. It is your job, Pumi, and my job to interrupt him and bring him back into the conversation, because this is not a place for monologues. This is not a place where we invite you as a guest and you get to grandstand and produce rhetoric for 10 minutes. Now, I'm not saying that's what he did, but as a politician, that is always their default position, right? Politicians will always do that stuff if you give them the time. I was very happy when you interrupted him. Of course, if you interrupt him, it's because you're interruptee and you're not giving him a chance. If I interrupt him, it's of course because I don't care about the ANC or because I'm a white racist or whatever. But the fact is, we've got to keep the conversation moving, and that's important. If you have a politician on and you don't give them parameters, it's a disaster.
It's like it was a little bit like, when like a soccer match is near, there's like 5 minutes left and one
Yes,
team is one, and then they're just like wasting time so that the
right.
clock runs out. It was horrendous. I actually couldn't. I just was just like, guy, what are you like what? We need parameters now. We need people must respond concisely and quickly.
Right.
People are like, it's in the morning. People are waking up and getting ready for like work and school and life.
I
We're
have
not
things to do.
supposed to bore them to stack deep.
All right, listen to this quickly. So here are a couple of voice notes for the show for this morning. Let's take a listen.
Hey, Cliff Central fam, it's Happiness from Australia.
Hmm.
Don't know if you guys remember me, but I am just wanting to say hello. And as you can hear, I'm still recovering from the weekend because I went to watch the Boer and it was great. Great because I have no idea how the game works, but still managed to come back with no voice. And taught a few white people some apartheid songs. Yes, all of them. Even the one that went to court, we were singing it and they were singing it back. And we managed to shut down a restaurant, not a club, a restaurant with our amapiano music. So I just wanted to let the Cliff Central fam know that I am representing
Nice.
South Africa. Very black and very well. And also just wanted to let you guys know that I still watch. And also, Simpiwe and Dory, please read my emails. I sent a juicy one for Dr. Hanan the other day.
Mm.
Anyway, have a good day, everyone.
All right.
And thank you for entertaining us. Bye.
Well, I have it on good authority from the producers that Happiness from Australia, who we just heard, is the next guest on Dr. Hanan. So we've got that juicy email in the inbox and we have read it, and she will be on Monday. Here are some
She
more.
is entertaining.
She's great. You see, now you wouldn't have to interrupt her, right? No.
She is wonderful.
Well, if you're private school versus government school, then maybe the access to education or the level of education, there's a disparity.
Yes.
Isn't there a way we could send all children to go into like a filling station set up type somewhere where they all just get
And
plugged
just gas
into
them up.
and they all get like an education?
Well, I'm just being nostalgic. Can you believe that? The old CliffCentral.com podcasts are just timeless. They are so amazing. I still can't believe the amount of inspiration, education, entertainment I get from them every time I listen to them. I mean, all of them, they are so good. I just want to share that. And by the way, it's Boozer Thursday. Morning, everybody.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's someone else's podcast. So that's a podcast
Was that
with...
Dr. Cindy?
Oh, no, she's not. No, she's no longer with us.
I know, but I'm just saying, is that the podcast that he was listening to?
I don't know. I don't think so. But that's a part of a podcast, and the host eventually ends off with it's Puzza Thursday. So I think that's pretty interesting. Good. The more the merrier. Here's another one.
Morning, Sanele here. I'm just watching everybody in the comments going apeshit over who is a professional and who isn't. I would like to point out that the original professionals are prostitutes. That's why they're called pros. Every other profession or professional is just a troll.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Correct. The original prostitutes. It's even in the name, prostitute. So, yes, very, very good. Thank you, Sanele. Lots of interesting stuff going on there. Lucky Twene says the burning platform should be getting a lot of attention. Well, it does. I mean, it gets a fair amount of attention. You know what the problem is? Frankly, the people who should be listening to the burning platform probably aren't. And because all of you guys do, we're almost preaching to the choir a lot of the time, which is why we encourage everybody who has not listened to that show before to come and listen. And that's why we wanted the ANC on last week. That's why we want all of the parties to come and join us. We want every possible piece of political ground in this country to be a part of that conversation. Because really, otherwise, we're not even listening to each other. Carl says,
the good
Gareth...
news is we're going into an election year. So everybody's going to be looking for any available microphone.
That's
So
true.
we're about to have an interesting couple of months, guys.
That is true. Carl says, Gareth, there's something wrong with your mic this morning. It's like you're too close to something. It sounds like you're talking through a checkers. No, that's because my voice is fucked. But thanks very much, Carl. That's because I don't have a voice at the moment. So it's got nothing to do with my microphone, I'm afraid. I'd love to say it was the microphone's fault, but it isn't. All right, well, it's 6:22. You want to get into some headlines?
Headlines.
All right, let's take a look. So apparently, Jacob Zuma is pushing to accuse Billy Downer, the advocate, of sharing his confidential medical records with Karen Morn, even though it became a public document after his own lawyers submitted it to the court. So this sounds like a nonsense case from the get-go. News 24 has described former President Jacob Zuma's push to privately prosecute the lead prosecutor in the arms deal trial, Billy Downer, and its journalist, Karen Morn, as an attack on media freedom. Zuma has accused Downer of sharing his confidential medical records with Morn, even though it was a public document after his own lawyers submitted it to the court. The National Prosecuting Authority in April announced its decision not to prosecute Downer, labeling the accusations baseless and without merit. The Zuma Foundation spokesperson, Mzwanele Manyi, said that the charges are very serious. Yeah, of course, because when Jimmy Manyi says something, we take it terrifically seriously, right?
Okay, so I did see a small piece of that Jimmy interview, I think on Newsroom, with Thabo Mdluli. And it was so fascinating to watch because he keeps saying, no, you see, the law, the act says, and then he has a number, 14.16.8, says nobody is allowed to give any information to anyone. The whole time I'm just like, that makes no sense, guy. That cannot be. No one's allowed to give any information to anyone. Like, what are you talking about? But
It's
I
amazing.
have a...
It's amazing to me how Mzwanele Manyi always chooses the wrong side. He can be relied upon to always choose the losing side in any discussion or argument. Isn't that true? Every time.
And for me, this was a guy who was speaking about professionals who had a great career, who was a consummate professional, whose entire career, and now the footnote is going to be in history is, as you say, always choosing the wrong side. He just completely fucked up what was a great career. He could have had a good life.
Yeah, he could have, but I don't think he really believed in himself, which is why he went into politics. Because, if you go into politics, it's because you're not sure that you've got something that you can sell.
I've met him quite a number of times and had many conversations with him before and after the fall. And it's still very surprising to me. I think that one of the things that is going to be an indictment on the ANC over and above every other thing that they have gotten wrong in the past 25 odd years is how reckless they have been with so many people's lives and careers. Reckless. I mean, and I think about Siyabonga Gama, who was at a time one of Africa's top transportation, logistics, and rail executives, in Africa.
Right.
And look, now he's in the dock because of reckless politicians and what has happened to people. It's awful. It's awful.
Okay. It's interesting here. Congo Chris says the longer the case stays in trial, the longer he can hide behind medical parole, and all the while the taxpayer must open their wallet to foot the bill. That may be a good point too with the Zuma situation. Let's move on though. The ANC in Johannesburg, that would be Dada Morero, who we spoke to just yesterday, has refuted allegations of bribery and corruption that's been leveled against its councillors. So, see, we put people on. Guess what? The next week they're in the news. And he was in the news the very next day because they tried to get a vote of no confidence against the council speaker and the mayor. So it turns out that the ANC in Johannesburg says there are no bribery and corruption and sort of untoward things going on in their their section of the city of Johannesburg. The regional chairperson, Dada Marrero, says there's no proof of any of these allegations that the ANC councillors bribed IFP and Patriotic Alliance councillors, and that it must be brought forward. This follows reports of vote buying that resulted in the council speaker being ousted. This week, 7 political parties who are in a coalition government in the city of Johannesburg opened a case of bribery against the ANC. The ANC allegedly offered a bribe of 150,000 rand to buy votes from councillors, which will also see Mayor Dr. Mpho ousted in this vote of no confidence. The
And
motion,
did he not try and say to us, well, lobbying is everywhere around the world. People
Yes,
do
that's right.
lobbying, and maybe we need to just consider how we rah, 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 rah.
Absolutely. Yeah, correct. So anyway, we'll see what happens. But he says, we've not bribed anyone. We'll stand by our word. That we're telling those, we're saying to those who say this, tell us who we bribed, he says. I don't know what you make of that. All right, so that's all the news that we've got from that side of things. Let me just see whether we've got something else here.
Did you see the news headline of the guy in Memphis that has
Who?
been driving around? There was on the news yesterday. I think it was because when I woke up this morning, kind of around 2 or whatever, they were reporting it in the States, in Memphis, a shooter who was driving around, changing cars like in a video game and just randomly stopping and opening fire. Shot 5 people before he was caught.
Jesus. Well, apparently
Like
there was also
you know how it,
apparently there was
you know
also
how
something in Canada.
dude, a stabbing, 10 people.
Yes, correct.
Canada.
Yeah.
Like stabbing incidents. But this guy in Memphis was ridiculous. It's kind of like, you know how on GTA, like the guy drives around and stops at
Yeah.
a gas station and shoots at people, gets back in his car, drives around to something. This is what this guy in Memphis was doing.
Yeah, they're calling it a spree. The man wanted for the Memphis shooting spree is in custody, apparently. Police have said the suspect responsible for causing terror and fear Wednesday night across the city of Memphis and the Mid-South has been taken into custody. A detailed live update of the events has been published. And apparently they've gone through the whole timeline to figure out what this guy did.
Yeah, because he had it on his Facebook Live.
Wow. Yeah, he you can't figure out with these people what they're actually after, right? But he was charged. He was charged with first-degree attempted murder back in 2020. He was also charged with aggravated assault, the employment of a firearm with intent to commit a dangerous felony, and reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon all those years ago. But of course, these people get released and they are not rehabilitated. I don't know if it's possible to rehabilitate someone who does those things. And he went on a shooting spree in Memphis. So he took his time. He had a plan. There was a shelter-in-place order for the city of Memphis until they caught him, which meant that lots of people were hiding in their houses, hoping that he wouldn't come anywhere near them. But he took this long drive and basically was just shooting at people randomly. He also he carjacked a Dodge Challenger in South Haven and wrecked it out on Whitehaven near Ivan Road. I don't know if you know where that is, but it doesn't matter. That's very specific. He was trapped in the car as of 9:15 p.m. Law enforcement got there, and they were able to get him out of the car. He's alive and in custody. So they're going to have to figure out what actually happened here. But the license plate of the vehicle that he apparently took is a gray Toyota SUV. And they say that he was responsible all alone. There was no one else acting. And they put out these warnings on the news about if you see this car, be very careful. And this is the guy, Ezekiel Kenny is what they say his name is. So he's a convicted felon who went on to do all of this horrible and dastardly stuff as well. What an awful story, huh? Can you imagine?
Right.
Going about your business. Maybe you've gone out for supper. Maybe you're doing something. And this lunatic decides to get in his car or someone else's car, carjack it, and then drive around just shooting people. This is Ezekiel Kelly. There he is. Doesn't look like such a dangerous guy in that picture, does he?
He looks a bit like Zoto Abantu.
All right, well, there it is.
I'm
That's the
serious.
story
He does.
from Memphis, Tennessee. All right, then a shark attack has killed a U.S. cruise passenger in the Bahamas. You know, these stories happen so rarely now that they have to be reported in all the headlines, right? So a U.S. cruise ship passenger was killed by a shark while snorkeling near the Bahamas on Tuesday. The 58-year-old woman from Pennsylvania was on an excursion near Green Cay near Nassau when the incident took place. Police later said that they'd identified a bull shark as the killer. A similar incident took place in the area, taking the life of a 21-year-old American in 2019. Despite gripping public attention, shark attacks are exceedingly rare. And it's important that they say that, even though it takes them a few lines to get there, because people have this unbelievable, irrational fear of sharks. But actually, the number of shark
It's from
attacks that occur in
Jaws.
the world, tiny, right? It's Jaws' fault. Totally.
It's from
You're
Jaws. It's from Jaws.
absolutely spot on.
Like
Um,
nobody was even thinking about the fact that she could have just been blissfully swimming and then
Right.
sank.
Family members and tour company staff saw her being attacked and managed to pull her from the water. A local news outlet, Eyewitness News, quoted Ms. Skippings as saying that the victim suffered wounds to her upper extremities. So that would be her arms. The victim was declared dead by authorities after being taken to shore. Her cruise ship, the Harmony of the Seas, was docked in Nassau at the time of the attack. It had begun its 7-day cruise of the Western Caribbean from Port Canaveral in Florida. Sure.
Congo Chris. Congo Chris.
What did he say?
There's a spate of micro shark attacks of people having their feet bitten off on the US East Coast. Are you hating on sharks, Congo?
All right. In other news, let's take our attention to the earliest evidence of amputation has been found in a cave in Indonesia. Researchers found a buried 31,000-year-old body of a young person that shows evidence of leg amputation. The find pushes back the origin of this complicated surgery by more than 24,000 years. That's amazing. That's a huge stretch of time. After the procedure, the person was cared for by their ancient community for years until their death. Dr. Melandri Flock, who examined the body, said it was quite clear that surgery had been carried out. A detailed examination of the ancient body, details of which are published in the journal Nature, took place when the person was a child. So how do you like that, Pumi? That's quite interesting, huh?
Ew.
31,000 years ago, our ancestors were already doing amputations. And that's pretty impressive.
And here we are lip sync battling.
Yeah, but I mean, they were able to do these amputations and successfully. You know, they clearly managed to look after this person for a long time after the amputation. They lived for many years after this, which is quite amazing, I think. And this is obviously very interesting. They carefully brushed away the deposits and recorded the lower half of the remains. We could see that the left foot was absent, but also that the remaining bone fragments were unusual. So we were excited at the range of possibilities. The excavation team subsequently asked the doctor, who is based at the University of Sydney, to examine the remains. With a discovery like this, she said, it's a mixture of excitement and sorrow because this happened to a person. Oh, come on. Do we really have sorrow? What a lot of shit. See, this is where universities are starting to let themselves down. You don't need to be emotional about a skeleton that you've dug up who had an amputation 31,000 years ago. There is not one person alive today who remembers that guy or girl. And it isn't important that you feel sad for them. Is that honestly what they got out of this idiot? This is supposed to be a person with skills. You know? I can't help
But
thinking
the
this.
skills can also be the skills can be also accompanied by a level of humanity.
Oh, God.
She felt sad.
Maybe it's because I'm feeling sick that I think this is bullshit. But really, your job is not to tell us about how you feel about the corpse. It's not a corpse anyway. It's a corpse if it's recent. This is an archaeological artifact. Put it in a drawer and let people study it. It is not, whether it was a person or not, it's completely unimportant. After 31,000 years, really? Come on. Honestly, Pums, do you think that that's an issue?
All I'm saying is 31,000 years ago, people were figuring out how to care for wounded or whatever was wrong with him, and amputate. And here we are, and we're lip sync battling. That's all
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Okay. Fair enough. That is kind of
That-
embarrassing. Yeah.
This is what
That's very
this is where we are. The Kardashians and lip sync battling.
So, if I let you go into any shop you want to steal stuff, what would you steal? Because what would you steal? If I said to you, you could go, well, let's just say I gave you permission, so it wouldn't be stealing. Said you could choose a shop, you can go in there and you can take whatever you want. Which shop would it be?
I think it would have to be like one of those department stores, like Macy's that have lots of different types of things, because I think I would love some like fancy earrings and rings and perfume and a PS5 for Kanego.
Well, the last part,
says an air fryer.
the last part of this is where you're close to the money, because 3 brazen thieves stole Lego from shops that was worth £4,650 in a 2-day spree. The men, all from London, took high-value kits of the plastic play bricks from B&M stores in Nottinghamshire on the 29th and 30th of August. It took them 2 days to do this. They included Lego-branded Minecraft sets and Disney princess castles. Officers launched a manhunt after the kits were piled into reusable shopping bags and lifted from the stores in Nottinghamshire. The thieves, dressed in T-shirts, shorts, and baseball caps, were caught when an officer spotted a full vehicle of toys in the Newark area on the 31st of August. Checks were carried out, and a team of officers stopped the vehicle as it traveled along the A17. All 3 male occupants were then arrested and later charged with 3 counts of theft. So these guys were working together over a period of 2 years. They must have planned this meticulously. And what were they stealing? Lego.
What?
Lego.
Although Lego is expensive, Lego
Yes.
is expensive.
Oh, yeah. So they've been jailed for 18 weeks, suspended for 12 months. That's their sentence. But they're also banned from entering any B&M store in England and Wales for a year. Oh, that's going to hurt them more. Sergeant Anthony Coleman said suspicions were aroused by the considerable amount of Lego in the vehicle, adding that these brazen thieves were swiftly caught. He added, they traveled to Nottingham to commit these high-value thefts, thinking they could get away with it. They were wrong. That's what he said. Okay. All right.
The fact
So
that
if you
they
can
planned for 2 years, there's so much going on here. Who are they going to sell this Lego to? What would they like?
Maybe they were just really into Lego,
Sure.
Just really into Lego. They needed this Lego, like desperately, because they wanted to build princess castles. So there we go. That's what you need to know in the news this morning. Lots of good stuff. Let's do one more voice note here. I don't want to leave these behind. So here's one of the ones that we didn't get to earlier. You ready?
All right. Good morning, Gareth and the Cliff Central team. This is Brandon, long-time listener since the very first show, and have hardly missed a show since then. Wishing you folks a fantastic Wednesday. I always look forward to the Wednesday shows. It's a bit of a wild card. You never know who the guest is going to be. I see Gord Laws is back in town, so that might be a bit of a surprise. But if not, whoever it is, I'm sure it'll be good.
Yep.
Have a fantastic day. Ciao.
Well, you're in luck because Gord will be on tomorrow. So lots of excitement around that. Very, very cool. Okay, we want to hear from you on the comments. So send us a comment. And also, as you know, you have to like and subscribe. Otherwise, the whole thing is worthless in the eyes of YouTube. So if we're going to do this YouTube thing, we need you to like and subscribe. Otherwise, we have major problems. So just go on there. Please do it right now. If we have to ask you again, it's going to get annoying for us. It's going to be annoying for you. Hop on.
Oh, you were sick yesterday, so you obviously didn't watch the Apple event.
No, but we talked about it on the show yesterday morning. Did you watch it?
No.
No.
I did not,
I-
but I because I am a fan of Apples, and I am still on an XS. I'm on like Apple 10, and
Right.
now we're 4 phones away, and my phone is, as you know, I've been having phone problems, right?
Right.
What I saw when I woke up this morning, just kind of looking through the timelines, seeing what people are, that phone looks nice. I'm sure the
It does look
price
good.
is even nicer.
Have you seen how nice the watch looks? Now that looks cool. Mm. See again. I mean, I'm a slave to this. So I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to pretend I'm above it. Like I'm better than that. Oh, you can't market your bullshit to me. You can, and I will buy it. I mean, if I had an extra a couple of $1,000 lying around, I would buy the new watch. I promise you. But it's expensive, and I don't need it. I mean, I've had that first generation watch, which I've still got for ages. This one's so old and outdated. I don't even think the software can update. But
Mm,
I've still got it, and I don't wear it very much. So
because
I
the
mean, I can
battery
count.
doesn't last.
Well, no, but I can count the number of times I've actually worn it on probably two hands in a year. So it's not worth me getting another one of these. I think that a new phone's probably a good idea. So you're on the XS. I'm on the 11. So I'm still on an iPhone 11 for me. So I'm not that much more advanced than you. Trust me. And I see the new. Look, what's interesting, I think, for a lot of people is the new operating system, iOS 16, which Ryan was telling us about yesterday. Look and feel is completely different. It speeds up the phone. Everything is that much more efficient. There are different ways that you can do things. That sounds like a win. And apparently, we'll all have access to that they said on the 15th or 16th of this month. So stick around for that. That's going to be good. Congo Chris says, I don't know why Apple needs to have live events. Just look at what Android did 3 years ago, and that'll be the new Apple. Well, that's what Greg in our office always tells me. He's like, oh, you guys who watch these Apple things, if you just saw what Android did a year ago or 2 years ago, you'll see what Apple's going to do. And mostly, I mean, I don't argue with Greg. He knows his stuff, right?
And this is where amazing marketing and design can combine to mind-blowing effects, right?
Sure.
Because
Right.
have you seen that? There's that little comic. It's very funny on that they hold it out. It does the rounds on YouTube every year after the Apple event. That says, with the guy that, do you guys have the Apple iPhone 10? And the guy's like,
Uh,
no. But have you seen this Android? It does this and this and this and this and this. And the guy says, I don't care. I want an iPhone 10. And it says, have you seen this at the Android and this at the, and says, I don't care. I want an iPhone, whatever the new number is. And that's the thing. That's what marketing does. I don't care. I just want the cool new shiny thing.
Did you ever see that clip of the Windows 95 launch with all the nerds on stage dancing?
No.
Bill Gates and no. They had the whole crew from Windows back in those days, and they're all Steve Ballmer and Bill Gates, and they all dance on stage. I'm going to ask Ryan if he can't find it for us because you need to see this. You know, whenever I see people doing a presentation, I'm like, okay, because Pumi, we do presentation training, and it's really important to do a good presentation. We've had Rich Mulholland on; his whole business is doing great presentations. And you've got people who do TED Talks and all kinds of stuff these days, and they do them really well. And I'll give credit where it's due. If you can do a good presentation, you can obviously, please an audience. You can usually put a good show on. People will listen. People will be impressed. They'll want to take part in your product or your service or whatever. But then I see something like Windows 95's launch back in the day. And obviously a lot has changed. So I'm willing to accept that, things are not exactly what they once were. But I look at this and I go, well, there's proof that it actually doesn't matter how you dress it up or how you market it. If the product itself is good and people believe in it. And I mean, as you recall, Windows 95 will go down in history as being one of the worst Windows that came out. But they were so excited when they got on stage and they handed this over to the public and they introduced it to the world. And it did very well. I think it sold record numbers of software across the world, made Bill Gates and company some of the richest people in the history of money. And yet their presentation was so shit that it beggars belief. So I'm going to see if I can't find that clip. So good.
That crazy, terrible presentation in and of itself is
Yeah.
part of the thing that piqued the interest of all people. Because it's always, there's always you just, the magic is in the magic. Sometimes it's the
Right.
most gormless things
Yeah.
that pique the interest of people, and sometimes it's
Absolutely.
got to be slick and beautiful, and
Uh-huh.
that's what. But it's the magic is in the magic. While you're looking for that clip, I thought about our presentation skills package, and I thought, maybe we should phone Dada. I spent the whole afternoon last week, Thursday, really kind of thinking back at the train wreck that was the show. And I was thinking, maybe before we invite him on, we should give him like a free crash course on how to like maximize the opportunity that he has in front of a microphone.
Listen, I mean, I think all of our politicians, John Steenhuisen could do with a couple of tips. No, really. Musiwa Lekota can clearly be told not to eat samosas before a fight breaks out. There's certain things that you can do, and we could offer this service to people because we know
I
how to
think
make
we
them
should.
a little bit better. Yeah, for sure.
I
Of
really
course.
think Dada we should like make it a package deal for Dada. I think he could benefit tremendously. It was shame, man. I felt bad for him.
Well, you know what? It would be good for the country as well if our politicians were better at presenting themselves and better at communicating ideas. Because at the moment, the ANC needs all the help it can get in that realm. They really do. Bronwyn says, no, porn and advertising makes up the majority of the internet. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, that is
What?
true. No, because they were talking about like Windows 95. And Tracy says, that clip is the most awkward thing to watch. No rhythm,
Yeah.
dad bods, running sneakers, dad jeans. So awkward. Absolutely. I'm going to try and find it for you. We're digging it up off the internet. It's so bad. Oh, it's so bad. And they all, there's something about like nerds that are dancing that is just, it's cringe. It reminds you of the unpopular kids at high school. And there's no doubt that the unpopular kids at high school were the nerds, and they probably end up being the guys and girls who end up with all of the money after school. So life has a funny way of rewarding people, right? Here's an interesting thing. Lucky says Steve Jobs' daughter says the new iPhone 14 is the same as an iPhone 13. Well, okay, there are two things to unpack here. First
Why
of
are
all,
we
that's
listening
probably.
to Steve Jobs' daughter?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What, like do we think that all of his genius just seeped into his children? How many genius people do you know whose children are just duds? Seriously. How many brilliant people do you know who have the most ordinary kids on earth? This is something we never talk about, and we should be honest about. We've got to stop attributing as if it's some kind of, it's purely in the DNA. This idea that you can transmute your great skills or your great genius or your great intellect to your children. I know so many fantastic, tremendous genius talent, people who are able to invent things and talk about any subject with alacrity, able to stretch their knowledge and the knowledge of humanity across several subjects, work on things that are on the very cutting edge of innovation, and they come along and they have kids, and they have these complete slob lummox children who just eat off of the reputation of their parents. So apparently her name is Eve Jobs. I think that's a lie. But if it is, that's hilarious. If her name really is Eve Jobs, that's so funny. I do like that. That's hilarious. Congo Chris
Speaking
says,
of,
we need
yeah.
to send John Steenhuisen to a training montage. He's gotten a bit tubby since going from chief whip to leader.
Hi, guys.
Well,
Body shaming. Body
hey.
shaming. John.
Hey, this is the show. Pumi, this is the show for body shaming. But I do want to say this. So obviously, Steve Jobs' daughter, Eve Jobs, says that the iPhone 14 is the same as 13. She may be right, but we shouldn't give her extra attention just because she's Steve Jobs' daughter. Right, Pums? Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah. Like, where was she saying this? Why was she saying this? Why is anyone talking to her about phones?
I don't know.
She should be like Paris Hilton. Just,
Yes. I mean, Paris Hilton, that woman. Listen, she became famous. She did very well. I see that. This is one of the things I scrolled past as quickly as I could yesterday, but I saw that Kim Kardashian is launching a private equity fund along with some
What?
investment. Yes, the Kim Kardashian private equity fund. So now she's going to find new ways of taking money from her stupid followers. So, I mean, I don't have to tell our audience, don't, but go and have a look. All right, so here is the clip. There's no sound on this, so you're just going to have to imagine that there's a rhythm in
Even
the background.
worse.
But take a look, because the reason we have to take the sound out is because otherwise YouTube nails us for copyright infringement. But watch this. We'll keep our microphones on and play you the sound of Bill. Well, not the sound, the video of Bill Gates and the other guys from Windows celebrating the Windows 95 launch. Are you ready? This is so great. Look at them.
No.
Oh yeah, look at them. Unbelievable. And they are just, it's so bad. And like Bill's head is like going backwards and forwards like those birds that, it's so horrible. And the one guy's like air punching, and now Bill's clapping, and it's just so awful. And you could see they were forced to do this, and no one wanted to do it, right? It's so awful.
They wanted to do this. Nobody can force you to
You think
do
so?
such a thing. They wanted to do this.
Okay. All right. Okay. And neither should we be giving Steve Wozniak any unnecessary attention, says Sharon. Okay. All right. Very good. They look like Forex traders. Fake. I suppose that means, the Kim Kardashian people. Golfers still look like that. That's true. They are dressed like golfers, right? Like if you had to explain the outfit to someone who was just listening, they're wearing like golfer outfits. Sort of
They
the baggy, loose
golf
pants,
shirts.
golf shirts. Right, exactly. So awful, though. I'm so glad we got to play that. Because when I saw it again, I was like, ugh, cringe. So cringe. And Corona's Boring wants to know, are they dancing to We Are Family? No, they aren't. I think they were dancing to some rock song.
Now I'm going to have to go look for this
Like
one.
Life is a highway, I want to ride it all night long. Something like that. I can't remember, but it's so bad. It's just so awful. They wanted to. No one can force you to be this horrible. Thabo agreeing with you,
I
Kumi.
agree, Thabo.
Yeah.
I 100% agree.
Yeah. So Sharon says, no. The Windows guys look like Forex traders. Fake. I've seen these online Forex traders air punching, etc. Oh, yeah. Listen, there are so many scammers online at the moment. I see like people who friends of mine are following on social media. And these people are posting like videos about how you can do Forex trading. But I can tell you right now, having sometimes met some of these people, they couldn't organize a piss up in a brewery. Oh, it's Start Me Up. That's the song. It was the Rolling Stones. You can start me up. Never stop.
Listen, the online scammers thing.
Yeah.
The online scammers thing is now out of control. It is really bad. But I have felt like a bit of a guide when you get a friend request or a follow, whatever, from somebody who is an impossibly hot girl who has nobody but men following them.
Definitely.
It's a scam.
Alarm bells. Yeah.
It's a scam. But I also read an article about a scam happening on LinkedIn. Now, you would think LinkedIn is a place where there won't be many scams, right? Because it's like a professional network and whatever. But these scammers have a very sophisticated thing. So they'll send you about working from home, an opportunity, a new company. You can work from home 100%, all of this, all of that. And if you're interested, go here. Professional looking website. Check out the website. And several people have actually fallen for this. Professional looking website. They organize a Zoom interview for you. A Zoom interview, of course.
Sure. Who wouldn't go
and
for that?
go through the whole process, send you a letter of appointment. You're hired. This is great. And then we're going to send you equipment. So we're going to send you a laptop because you're working from home, and we're going to send you this and this and this.
All right.
And then that's where the problem starts, right? Oh, you're in South Africa. Okay, so getting the stuff to you is a little bit hard from where we are. So we will send you money so you can buy it from. And then the money doesn't show up, and then they'll send you a like proof of payment. The money has been sent to you because you've given them your banking details because you filled in all the forms now that you are employed.
So sophisticated.
It's oh, we've overpaid you. Please can you deposit back into this account, this X amount? It's crazy. So be extra
and then what
careful.
they would get your bank details when you make the payment back, and then they would be able to hack in.
Yeah,
Wow.
so they can hack in, or even or they'll send you a proof of payment because, right, if you get employed, what do? You fill in all of your details, including your banking details, where they can pay you your salary, right? So that you can get your salary at the end of the week or month or whatever it is, dude. And then they'll send you a proof of payment that says we have put in 10,000 Rand into your account for you to buy a laptop and whatever necessary gadgets you need. And
See,
then, we were supposed to put in 5,000. Please, can you pay us back the 5?
Right. So you know what? This is where we need blockchain technology, because that is one surefire, 100% sure way to make certain that someone actually has paid you, or that you owe someone, or that there's, the numbers are real. You can't bullshit the blockchain. That's where it'll be handy. And that's why I still believe in a completely tangential discussion in the future of things like Ethereum. But it's going to be a while before people will believe that stuff. In the meantime, I mean, when you get a proof of payment, you don't know if someone's messed with that. They can change a PDF.
Yeah.
You know how people are. They can scan things in. I mean, people are already forging documents long before they were digital. You remember people using Tipex? Remember back in the day? Right?
Tipex and thingy and photocopying.
Yes. And then if you photocopied something with Tipex, you couldn't see the Tipex.
Yeah.
Everybody learned that trick at school. You just had to find a photocopying machine, which wasn't so easy to find at that point because we didn't all have printers in our houses, right? Anyway, so we've got to take a break at 7:00. When we come back, it's the burning platform. Stick around for that and a whole lot more. CliffCentral.com.
This week on the Autotrader podcast.
Belgian Grand Prix has happened. I don't think there's any way of getting through this episode without talking about the insanity that was Spa.
I'm more and more of the opinion that Verstappen deserves this championship.
For sure. 9 wins.
Like 9 wins, besides the 9 wins.
And that drive that he did was
like
just
coming from
clutch.
the back.
Yep.
He just really dominated that race. Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
It is Thursday morning on cliffcentral.com. We are on the 8th of September already. It seems kind of crazy that just around the corner we will be at December and the end of the year. So if you're not ready for it, then join the club. I'm feeling the same way. It's time for the Burning Platform. This is our chance every week to catch up with current affairs, to talk about all the things that are going on in politics, the things that are going on in society, in the economy that we need to pay attention to. And this morning, I'm very, very pleased, along with my co-host Phumi Mashiko, to welcome two returning champions today, two people who have been guests on the Burning Platform a couple of times. It's always good to welcome them both. First up is Ernst Roets, who is the Deputy CEO of AfriForum. Ernst, it's good to have you back, and thanks for joining us. How are you?
Hi, Gareth. Thank you. It's good to be back. I'm doing very well. I had a very good week, and I've got a good day ahead of me. So, thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, good. I like this optimism. So, obviously, that had nothing to do with an appearance that you made on Newsroom Africa the other day, which my producers sent to me. I watched this thing. It was probably like 14 minutes long.
45 minutes long.
Jesus. Phumi, was it the most frustrating thing you've ever watched as well?
45 minutes long. I actually couldn't stay the full 45 minutes.
No. And I don't know how you did, Ernst. I really don't.
Yeah. I remember that interview. It was
with Trevor.
I actually thought it was going to be a just an interview, not a panel discussion or a debate. And to be fair, I went back to my WhatsApps and I saw the first message they sent me was actually that it is going to be a panel discussion. So it was my mistake. But there was this spokesperson from Azapu in the studio who kept saying some really atrocious things to my mind. Obviously, he thought that I was saying atrocious things. And I really thought that some of his views were eventually, I just said that I think some of these opinions he's expressing are evil, and I've never said something like that.
I mean, the most interesting thing to me was that he seems to think you have a farm somewhere. Which, if you do, it's time that you come clean on that and stuff.
Yes,
you can't be hiding your assets from SARS.
He kept talking about my farm, and that's it's just I don't know. It's just maybe just part of what the media landscape is like. Is sometimes you get accused of things or claims are made about you that aren't true, and you get frustrated that you don't get time to put it right. So I think once or twice during the interview, I tried to get him to respond to explain to people where is this so-called farm that I have, and so he just kept talking about my farm, and he needs to take my farm. And
it's amazing.
I'd love to have a farm, but I don't have one.
There's some people who really do believe all the racial stereotypes, like all Afrikaans people have to have farms. All black people are poor. All Xhosa people, all Xhosa women are like aggressive with their husbands. That it's such nice racist stuff that people peddle out there. Anyway, it's good to have you back, and we've got a very specific thing that we want to talk to you about. So we're not going to keep you for the entire Burning Platform, but we'll get to that in a moment. I also want to welcome an old friend of the show and someone who everybody loves having here, and that is Leeto Nthoba. How are you, Leeto?
I'm good, and you guys?
Good, man. You're laughing. You don't think people like having you on. They love it when you're on. You're the only one who first of all, gets everybody equally riled up, which is part of fun. And I think, Phumi and I find ourselves agreeing with you like 90% of the time, and the other 10% we like vehemently opposed to what you're saying, but we haven't had one of those for a while. So I have a feeling...
shocked and horrified.
Yeah, I have a feeling, guys, and we'll get an update from Leeto just now about what's going on in welcome, because that place is just, it's like a canary in the coal mine for what will happen to small town South Africa if we continue down the path that we're on. And that's why it's good to keep up to date with what he's been telling us about the parties and how they're behaving and what kinds of politics are happening on that level. It's very important that we keep checking in with Leeto, even though for you, Leeto, it must be very depressing to have to share all of this stuff with us.
It is quite depressing, but I think I'm making a little bit of progress. So when I was doing my shopping, one of the mayor's representatives came and talked to me and said, no, please stop talking about the garbage truck. We're actually trying to fix it. It's not our fault this time. Somebody left it out there, didn't take it to the machine shop. So they're listening, they're hearing me.
Okay, good. All right, listen, if we can, like this, all we want for this show at the base level is to like inform people of what's going on, give people a different point of view. But if we can actually make change, wow, then we're succeeding in all the ways, and then I'll be as happy as Ernst is. All right, so guys and girls, let's get straight into this, because it is the topic of the moment. It's something that the audience has been asking Pumi and I to have our say on. I have had my say, so I'm going to keep my part brief. But we got to talk about this hate speech case, the Kill the Boer case, as it's been called. I want to start off by just saying that the status at the moment is that the court found, this is the Equality Court, found that it is not hate speech to sing Kill the Boer. AfriForum has, of course, appealed that case, and they're going to take it up a level where they hope to have it declared hate speech. Now, Ernst, I haven't had this conversation with you before, but in some ways, you've kind of paradoxically done me a favor, because the more narrow hate speech is, the more I can get away with on my show. The more narrow, like I feel, obviously, if someone says kill X, Y, and Z, to me that's clean cut kind of incitement and all the rest of it. And I don't understand what the judge might have thought here, because all the things that the judge said didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But selfishly, I'm kind of pleased with this finding, and I don't want you to appeal, because to my mind, if hate speech is so narrow that even saying kill Gareth or kill Pumi is not hate speech, then I can say whatever I want. Then we truly have almost a First Amendment of the United States kind of hate speech, where even incitement in the form of like kill X, Y, and Z isn't enough to get you into trouble.
Yeah. Well, maybe a brief comment on that. So when the Constitution was drafted, there was this debate about which model should be followed in terms of freedom of speech, which is obviously a cornerstone, if not the cornerstone, of a free and a democratic society. And there are broadly two models, which people call the American model and the German model. And the American model is, as you say, as free as it can possibly get in terms of what you can say. And then the German model is slightly more limited due to their history, among others. So there are certain limitations. And in the South African legal system, we follow the German model, which says that you have a right to freedom of speech, but it does not extend to incitement of violence, propaganda for war, and hate speech. So yeah, and I think it becomes a bit ambiguous, you might say, that the thing is there are different cases running. There have been many cases about hate speech in South Africa. And I mean, there's this one about Kill the Boer, which you could say targets farmers or targets Afrikaners or the Boers, whoever you define as Boers. Then there was the Kolani case, which dealt with hate speech towards gay people. And I mean, there are many others. We had the Penny Sparrow, and we had Vicky Momberg, and all of that. So the challenge here is that we need to find a principle or a way to apply the law with regard to hate speech that can be applied consistently. I mean, the flag is a good example. So we have to get to some form of an interpretation of the law that can be applied consistently to Kill the Boer and to the flag and to hate speech towards gay people and to hate speech towards black people and so forth and so forth. And it seems that we are struggling to get there. When I say we, I'm talking about us in the broad sense of the word.
So first of all, Leeto, what's your point of view on all of this? Because you've obviously been watching the story evolve as well. What do you think of this current situation?
I like the way that Ernst puts it, that we are struggling with it, right? And we have to struggle because the whole thing is not acontextual. So if it was acontextual, like if I came up, if my incitement is kill Gareth, right? There's no context to that. Even if I don't know you, even if we are like casual on some level, that we've been on the same show, if I say to you, kill Gareth, then the acontextuality of it, yes, makes it hate speech, because why do you want to kill Gareth? Now it's puzzling, right? But now the problem is the contextuality of South Africa. Just like Ernst speaks about that, there is the German model, because the German model specifically takes into consideration the context in which Germany went through, right? The strife that the country went through. And so if we take our context into consideration as well, it is interesting because, one, how do we get to this place of the standard, right? Because the standard would be very, very harshly applied if one of the parties then says, oh, but you're saying this, but they said that because they were in a superior position. Now that we are in a position that we could say something, you are saying we must stop. And so the way in which the country must tackle it, and I think that the court cases are very important, because to some degree, it's to push the system to a place where we now start to heal. Because people think we healed when we came together and started talking at Codesa. That was the beginning stages of the healing. Now we have to be practical about the healing to say, what does a healed wound look like, right? It is a wound. Somebody murdered somebody because they were black one day. Somebody murdered somebody because they were white one day. And it was a political way in which they interacted with each other. Now we say we're trying to get to a basis where what is base level wound healing of this contextual past that we're talking about? And I think the court case, but also on how AfriForum and Ernst and them tackled the case. They could have actually won the case, right? And actually in the way in which Julius Malema speaks particularly, right? I think the kill the Boer part for me was a wrong way to tackle him, right? There were other ways to tackle him, which he was actually quite akin to and almost slipped up in when he was being cross-examined in the case. And so I think the way in which you tackle Julius Malema in the way he speaks would be better suited, not with the songs, but with actual things that he says. And he always catches himself out. And I think when you push it in that direction, it will start to put the baseline, because the songs, like I said, have a contextual past to them. And so the context that he always puts down, like I was listening to the whole cross-examination. I was literally on my way to Virginia to go kids out to debate. For the whole hour, I listened to the way in which he contextualized the song in and of itself. And it's very, very hard to get you out of the context, especially if you know the past of the country's past.
It's an interesting take on it, and I think context does matter. I think Ernst was nodding his head too. I think context massively important. Pums, what's your opinion on this? Because people have been asking you for like a week and a half to say what you think about it.
And I was so glad that we didn't get to talk about it last week, because I still haven't had the chance to read the judgment. Because again, we talk about context. It's important to understand. So why reading the judgment is important is it will give you a view on what the parameters the judge used to come to the conclusion that he came to. Because again, laws, and this, Gareth, about court experiences are more than just about the baseline of what I think, what other person thinks or feels. It is about what the laws say, and it is testing it against that law. So that for me, all I can say in this conversation, not having read the judgment, is that I think one step closer to testing each other's tolerance around what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. But I do think I've been watching a lot of Newt Gingrich, believe it or not, over the past couple of weeks. And he talks about releasing rabbits. And this is a thing that at a presentation that he gave, I think 2 years ago, and speaking particularly about Donald Trump. And rabbits, when you release rabbits, and this is the media attention span that we have, then they chase after the rabbit. You see how when rabbits are out, then the way the dogs chase after the rabbits. And that's how we all are. All of us, because of Twitter, because of the 24-hour news cycle, we all chase rabbits. and we kind of consumed by this one thing, and that's what we pay attention to. And I feel this case, even then, even before I knew about the idea of chasing rabbits, is a rabbit. It is a rabbit. We're chasing a rabbit that we don't really have the luxury to chase. I think we are putting out some of our best minds frivolously to use in some of these cases because we have bigger problems that we should be worrying about, that we should be finding solutions to. And we are not. We are busy chasing rabbits. We are looking at Cyril Ramaphosa watching a pothole being filled. We are wondering if Julius Malema said kill or kiss. And we live in a country with 60 million people. 11 million of those are living off a 350 grant the government cannot afford.
But
And
Pubs, we can't help this. I mean, I'm going to let Ernst reply to that in a second, but we can't help this. I mean, you're right about chasing rabbits. This is what distracts us. This is what grabs our attention. If someone uses the K word anywhere in South Africa now, it will be front page news by tomorrow, because God forbid someone should use that word, right? And I think there would be very few people who would say, "Oh, that's not hate speech," even though it's not necessarily inciting violence. It certainly is racist and wrong, considering our past. And again, this is where Leeto's context comes into it. But Ernst, do you think that we are chasing rabbits? Do you think that clearly you guys have put money behind this? You're taking it up on appeal. You don't think this is a rabbit chase?
Well, in a way, I can concede and say yes, we are. But I think again, the answer to that goes back to the whole point about context. While he was speaking now, I opened up the French national anthem, the English version thereof, because I know that was used or has been used in the past in defense of songs like Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer, and Dubela Ibunu. So I'm just going to read quickly the English translation, and this is the official French national anthem. It says, "Arise, children of the fatherland, our day of glory has arrived. Against us the bloody flag of tyranny is raised. The bloody flag is raised. Do you hear in the countryside the roar of those ferocious soldiers? They're coming right into your arms to cut the throats of your sons, your comrades." I mean, this is very, you could say this is hate speech. How can someone sing something like this? But and the reason why I'm mentioning this is because this has been used as an argument against us.
Yeah,
but
the actual the line that I think people use in Le Marseillaise, which is particularly egregious to those who are like on the hate speech side of the argument, is where they say, "Kill all those people of impure blood." I mean, that's a pretty hardcore thing to say, and what they mean there
if
is
that's not hate speech, what is hate speech? Yes,
I mean, those are the ones who don't fully believe in the revolution, so to speak.
Yeah. So the reason why I mentioned this as something that is usually has been argued against our position is that you have to consider context. So this song is about the French Revolution. The same way it is often said that, not often said, the same way it is, it is said that this Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer, and Dubela Ibunu is about the struggle. But the difference here is that the French Revolution was hundreds of years ago. It was a thing of the past. There are not people running around in France, stabbing people to death and raping them in the street and beheading people and putting their heads on spikes and things like that. The problem here in South Africa is South Africa still is a very violent country, and South Africa does still have a serious problem when it comes to farm murder. So obviously I'm not suggesting that farm murders is the only crime problem. I mean, we have many other crime phenomena, violence against women and children and so forth. But one of the many crime problems that we have is farmers being attacked and killed and sometimes tortured. And sometimes during these farm attacks, people chant political slogans. They make political statements while they're attacking the farmers. And so this is part of the context that we have to consider is you have politicians chanting, "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer," or singing Dubela Ibunu. And then you have farmers being murdered where the attackers write the words Dubela Ibunu on the wall of the farmhouse. So that's part of the context here, and I think that's what we need to consider, or one of the things. And if you consider this, I don't think this is a rabbit hole.
Ernst, do you think then? I have a question. Do you think then that if there's a farm murder and the words "Kill the Boer" are written on the wall, and these people are caught and brought to court, right? They've been arrested and now they are facing trial. Do you think the fact that those words were written on the wall will change in any way the sentencing, the court case that they have to stand up against? Is it going to make a difference to the weight of the crime that they have committed? Is it important?
That's a good question. I think it does, because then it brings it into the realm of hate crime, of murdering someone because you hate that person based on his or her identity. And that is something I know in South Africa we don't have hate crime, hate crime laws as such, but it's something that's generally regarded as a serious phenomenon in the world. So the question is, if a white person kills a black person, at a shopping center or whatever concept, default circumstances, as opposed to Boer that guy who took a gun and deliberately went because he wanted to kill black people, and he went into onto a bus 20 years ago or something, and he just started killing people because they are black. Is there a difference? The Witwolf, yes. So I would say if you go out and you murder people because you hate them based on their identity, it is worse. And I think it's not so much worse or better for the victim, but it's worse for society at large. And it's something that we should see what we can do to prevent this from happening, and also to ensure that politicians and influential people don't encourage this on public platforms.
If I may, Gareth.
Go ahead, Leeto.
Let me just muddy the waters for a little bit here, right? So, the song Dubuli Bunu, for instance, right? It is Kill the Boer song. Because contextuality is important. Like, 2 months ago when the students were protesting writing exams, they were singing the very same song. And we have minimal white people here at CUT Welcome, right? And so, that's the first part, to say, but this song is sang even outside the context of farm murders, right? There's no farm that the CUT owns, right? But then secondly, of course, it is hate crime if you go and murder somebody because of their race and their disposition. But then remember, there was also the case of the farm owner who shot and killed, I think, 2 kids and said no, he thought it was a monkey. And so that would have been in the same kind of context and auspices. And even that was not considered as hate speech when the prosecution tried to put it down as aggravated circumstances. So that's what I'm saying, because contextuality matters. In South Africa, even if we have to grind down to it, right? I know Pumi doesn't like it, but I think it's important to grind down to the facts that, one, even if these things are happening, do we really need to exacerbate why we think one hates the other? Because I think for the most part, no white person walks around hating a black person, right? And those are the things that we want to talk about. What actually is like something like racism, right? Racism was not me hating white people. It's actually me being ignorant of white people, right? So at the end of the day, we have to then get those definitions right? To then say, do we educate people out of their ignorance in order to get us closer together? Or do we have to keep talking about the schisms that keep these people apart and talk about how they hate each other? This might be hate if you do this. This might be hate if you do that. Because I think that is just reinforcing the negative. And I think that's what we love in this country. We love scratching and clawing at each other with all of these negatives that lead nowhere.
Yeah, we do. And I think it's a major preoccupation of ours, though. And I do think, look, Leeto, there are racists. We come from a racist past, right? And I think nobody's going to sit here and deny that. There are some people who just hate. Not everybody's ignorant. Some people are actually just hateful. But they're a tiny, tiny minority. So if we can get perspective on how many of those people there actually are, it'll give us a much better reason to avoid falling into the obvious pitfalls of making this headline news every time it happens. And it always seems to me that the media plays a huge role in this, because it's like red meat for the vultures. When they can find a white person saying the K word, if they can find a black person saying kill the Boer, then it's like, this is going to sell us some copy. This is clickbait. This is amazing. This is what they love. And we know that the average South African is the kind of person that you've described, where most of the time we want to get along, we want to make things happen. I mean, you could see it during those KwaZulu-Natal riots last year, where people came together across all kinds of racial lines. You had taxi drivers defending like middle-aged white women in shopping malls. You know, we had all kinds of interesting things happen there, which prove yet again that South Africa is the kind of country where people would rather stick together than fall apart. Unfortunately, though, if you believe and you are principled about the fact that you don't want someone to say that group of people needs to be killed, even if in the context of a song, it's part of a long struggle history and all of that stuff, then I suppose it's, you know, Ernst and the people at AfriForum are within their rights to pursue this legally. Now, you're going to appeal this, Ernst. What's your best possible outcome?
Yeah, so we have been engaging with our legal team. We have contracted Jeremy Gauntlet, who's one of the most senior advocates in the country, to lead the team as senior advocate. And say that again.
Very expensive.
He's very expensive.
Yeah. Yes. So we can, to appeal, just quickly, you can go to a full bench in the High Court, which means you're still in the High Court, but it's 3 judges. Or you can go to the Supreme Court of Appeals in Bloemfontein or the Constitutional Court. I suspect this matter will end up in the Constitutional Court. Our legal advice at this stage is it's best to go to the Supreme Court of Appeals, because we suspect that the Constitutional Court would say, listen, you have to go to the Supreme Court of Appeals first. So we can petition to go directly to the Constitutional Court. But so I'm sure we will end up in the Supreme Court of Appeals for now. And we want the ruling to be overturned. And there are two main, I leave it to our legal team, but there are 2 overarching things for me that struck me upon reading the judgment. One is I don't think, and we don't think, that the definition of hate speech was applied correctly. And the second one is we don't think the court dealt with the witnesses appropriately. And I'm not only referring to myself, I'm referring to the victims of farm attacks who testified about the trauma they experience. They have been in a farm attack and they switch on the news and they hear people chanting, kill the Boer, kill the farmer. And they testified about the trauma this causes. And the court did not consider that. The court said that it's not going to consider that. And I think that was a mistake.
Pums?
Well, I think that last statement, because what I really would like to know, having read the judgment and considered it, is there any part of that judgment that you feel the judge got any consideration right?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, certainly. I think there was a lot that the judge spoke about, that we have to consider things in context. He spoke about the past in South Africa, and we have to consider that. He spoke about the importance of freedom of speech, and that it's a fine line to tread when you talk about hate speech, and the purpose of the Equality Act. And so I think there was a lot that the judge said that we agree with. I'm just me having read the judgment. My 2 main concerns are the 2 concerns I mentioned now.
Yeah, but
Leeto?
yeah, with the judgment though, he did really tear you apart specifically, right? But but the witnesses, for me, I get what you're saying, how the trauma should have been considered, right? But you must remember how the judge also framed it and said, but he could not see the causal link between them and the song. And so that's the thing. And that's why I say some of your strategy sometimes it gets to me, because you find yourself chasing the smaller things, if not the bigger things, right? You should have contextualized it in the way that Malema makes people feel alienated, and not necessarily that the witnesses, because the witnesses, the way they were being crossed, sounded like they were people who were going to testify to being attacked while this song was being sang, particularly by EFF members, right? And I think that in and of itself didn't do justice to them. What should have been done was reduced to how Malema addresses white people in general, right? Even though he says, yes, white people must still be included, but we're going to take the farms. He must then be synthesized to that alienation, and then link alienation to hate. Because you see, and that's why, Gareth, I keep saying ignorance and then racism, right? He alienates and then creates a sort of like ignorant corner, and then can put you there and punch you and punch down on you and not make it that obvious that he's actually hating and going down on you, right? I'm sorry, no pun intended, going down on you, right? But so if you get to think about it properly, the strategies that AfriForum holds for me don't get to the crux of to the nub of the matter, and at times that detracts from everything. And so please consider that when you're talking to your lawyers. My 2 cents from Belgium.
Although you see an appeal, Leeto, unfortunately you can't make new arguments. In an appeal, you cannot make a new argument. And that strategy which you are now talking about would be retrying.
In my opinion, AfriForum needs to abandon this part for me, right? And go back to Molefe and the way in which he speaks about white people, one. But secondly, the way in which he isolates them, even and then exacerbates it with a song. So he isolates, he says whites are the problem, whites need to be taken care of, but then the problem is anthropomorphized into land. Right? It's not whites, but the land that the whites own. We need to dispossess them of that, and then sings the song, right? If you make that link, that's when you say it's ignorance. And then because he is the one enacting the hate, he will then get his hate corner. And the people who understand what he's doing, his dog whistling, then makes sense, right? And so, who am I though?
So in other words,
I'm a guy in a small town.
What I'm hearing here is you should approach as a friend of the court, and you should their attention. So Ernst, unwittingly, we may have added another party to this case. Look, I'd be interested to see what happens. As I said selfishly at the beginning of this, the more narrow and the more precise the definition for hate speech, the more we will be free to really say what's on our mind. And I think there's so much. You can see this in America, which again we referred to at the beginning of this conversation. You can see how many people are afraid to say certain things because they will be called hateful, and they'll have hate speech leveled as a charge against them. And we see this happening, particularly the left has a habit of calling any speech they don't enjoy hate speech. So, I mean, again, in some perverse way, you've almost you may have lost this first stage of the case, but in some way you've kind of won it for people who are against being labeled hate speech proliferators, where they're actually just speaking their mind. I mean, so much of what you say on a daily basis, Leeto, what you say, Ernst, what you say, Pumi, and what I say could be regarded as hate speech by people who are extremists, who think that who think that you should only be able to say things that please them. We have that problem in the world.
Nice things.
Especially when you consider hate speech as something that is offensive. I mean, we've had this discussion before, but it's very important not to take that line to say this is hate speech because it's extremely offensive, because a lot of things are extremely offensive to a lot of people.
So on that note, Ernst, I heard you. Sorry, Pums. Ernst, you said the other day on one of these interviews that hate speech without incitement is an offense. So in other words, saying offensive things. Sorry, let me start that again because that was incorrect. Saying offensive things is not in any way a crime, but hate speech with incitement to violence is a crime. Do you want to just explain that so that we can be clear? Because I don't even know that I've got that definition.
Okay. So there are three things. One is offensive speech, and then the other one is hate speech, and then the other one is incitement of violence.
Okay.
So offensive speech is just something that offends someone, and it could be very offensive or mildly offensive. Offensive speech becomes hate speech when it contains a call to action. So when you target a group of people based on who they are. So if I say, we mentioned the example, kill Gareth. If I say kill Gareth, it's probably not hate speech because I'm not targeting you based on your identity. If you target a group of people,
mention my name.
Yeah. Okay, it's not your group identity. If you look at how the hate speech law is
that sounds like a lot of leftist claptrap that suddenly groups have privileges that individuals do not. I mean, surely it's even more dangerous to call for a particular individual to be assassinated than it is, and more egregious than for a group.
That's when crimen injuria comes in. So crimen injuria only considers when you target a particular person and not when you target a group. So when you target a group of people because they are white or black or Christian or Muslim or something to that effect, and then you call not necessarily for violence, but for harm to be inflicted on them. So you say, for example, we need to discriminate against black people because they are black or something to that effect, then that becomes hate speech. You call for society to take action against a group of people based on who they are, whether that's violence or when you say, when you see a black person in the street, you have to insult that person, or spit at them or something like that. It's not violence in the technical sense of the word, but it's still hate speech because you're calling for people to take action. And that's different from incitement. So incitement is when you actually call on people to commit a crime. And the difference is sometimes hate speech is also incitement. So that's why the Equality Act, part of the Equality Act says you can take someone to court for hate speech, and you can then ask for the matter to be referred to the Director of Public Prosecutions to consider whether the crime of incitement was also committed.
I mean, I think the thing about the hate speech and the protections of freedom of expression is, do you remember that movie, The People versus Larry Flint? Like that, that's one of the most famous kind of freedom and the protection of your freedom of speech was Larry Flint, funny pornography.
Of Hustler magazine.
But that's just the thing, right? Is when you are nice, when you are acceptable, when you are then you don't need the freedom. You don't need the protection. You don't need the protection. It is when you are inconvenient, and it is when you are saying things that people don't want to hear you say, that you then need the freedom and the protection of the law. So the thing about it is, and again, we talk about context, and we talk about here in South Africa, all of those things are this complete quagmire that we need to consider all the time. But I stand on the point that says, as much as this may sound for you like the most important thing in the history of important things, because it really, on the context of what is happening in our country, we should be spending our brain power and our energy and our time on the big things, and the big things really are.
But can't AfriForum walk and chew gum at the same time? I mean, they are doing a bunch of other things. It's just one of the things they're doing, aren't they? I mean, you answered.
But this is also no. Are they? Are they really? It's not just about It's just if it was happening in a small corner over there with AfriForum and the judge and Julius Malema, but it actually sucks the air out of the room for everybody else too.
Yeah, well, I really want to say that I agree with you, but unfortunately I can't, because the reason why I can't is because this is probably the most important thing to the average AfriForum member. I don't think there's anything that there are very few things. I can't think of anything now that the average AfriForum member regards as more important than for their immediate frame of reference. Is doing something about farm murders, the fact that farmers are being targeted and killed. And while farmers are being targeted and killed, and many of them are family members of them. I mean, I've had family members who've been murdered on farms, and friends who've been murdered on farms. And while this is happening, you have politicians romanticizing it and making jokes about it, and then chanting, if you take the words just at face value, encouraging this. So it's not just something that's sort of on the fringe. It's a very, very real reality. It's like if you live if your most significant reality in your frame of reference is violence against women, and you are a woman who are being beaten, and you have friends who are women who have been killed by their husbands or something to that effect, and a politician goes on stage and talks about why women should be beaten to keep them in line, it's going to be the most important thing for you to address, and with good reason. So I guess different people cherish different things that should be dealt with as the most important thing in the country.
Yeah, I mean, you have
man,
members.
that's the story.
Well, I mean, you have members, and those people are paying for you to chase the whichever rabbit they want chased. I mean, Cyril's going around doing photo ops around potholes. I'm going to let you go, Ernst, because I know you've got to go and do the school run and a bunch of other things. But Leeto, I want you to please stick around because we've got some other things on the agenda that I want to talk to you about. So, Ernst Roets, thank you very much for joining us this morning. I would say good luck with your appeal, but actually, selfishly, I'm against your success at the next level.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We'll speak to you soon. Thanks, Ernst.
All right. Thank you for having me on. It was great as always.
Sure. Good to see you. And hopefully not as frustrating as some of the interviews I mean, Leeto, you've been on some of these other shows where they just, I mean, a panel discussion becomes, we even had someone from the ANC on the other day. It was very frustrating for Pumi. Poor Pumi, she had to be accused of interrupting him the whole time just because she wanted to keep the show moving. So let's keep the show moving. Foreigner sentiment.
Which is not much different from the conversation that we've just had. Hey, it's a continuum of that, the foreigner sentiment.
But if we didn't talk about this, I mean, you saw even from our audience, people wanted to know what you thought, what Leeto thought, what I thought, what Ernst thought. And now we've hopefully addressed that. There are some other things that we want to get to. So let's talk about foreigner sentiment in government. We know that there's this huge thing going on at the moment. We saw I think it was in Atteridgeville just the other day, there was a massive protest where Operation Dudula and the EFF were at loggerheads about the use of our hospitals, our government hospitals, by foreigners who come in either because of trauma or because of disease or because of general medical issues. And they obviously need to use some health facility anywhere. I mean, what are they meant to do? Go and die in the fields? But this is not acceptable to the people of Operation Dudula. And the EFF are standing strong, saying there's some Pan-African element to this which we need to pay attention to. In between is obviously the Department of Health. And we need to now consider whether or not they are actually in a position to offer medical care to people who are not South African citizens. And if so, how much do the taxpayers of South Africa have to bear in terms of treating people who are illegal immigrants to the country? I mean, we don't doubt for a second that anyone who's come to live here deserves a basic amount of medical care. And we've discussed xenophobia on this show before. But where do you think this is all going, Leeto?
I think this is going the wrong direction, right? Where it's being weaponized by the ANC to sort of distract us from the real card game that's actually happening. I think that's the first point of departure we must take, is that, but we need to address this because it's important, right? The way in which Operation Dudula is pressing the ANC into an uncomfortable corner, one, is telling of how scared the ANC is of losing the next election, right? Because Operation Dudula, for the most part, is not some large movement of South Africans. It's just like a bunch of people from Soweto, right? But then at the end of the day, they're being taken as the highest voice when it comes to foreigner sentiment. Because at the end of the day, we must admit certain things, right? One, the first thing we must admit is, yes, the South African medical system, especially the public health system, has been overwhelmed. But the foreigners are not the biggest part of that, right? We must also acknowledge that the mismanagement of these hospitals is the worst part of it. So we can actually accommodate everyone like we always have been doing. The problem comes that when the resources are limited by the corruption, right? You look at Baragwana, they said they were quoted 70,000 rand for one bucket on the other, on some tender, right? And so when you're looking at those things, those are the problems of the system. And then it's much easier to just point at the foreigners and say, no, it's actually them who are making the problems for us, right? And then we must also talk about the foreigners themselves, because I think it's very important to also not suffer from the single narrative and say, oh, but all foreigners need protection and all foreigners are like these great, wonderful people. Because if you think about it, if we let's reduce it down to a simple place, like and say South Africa is a house, right? And we have guests, right? These foreigners are guests here. And they are good guests and they are bad guests. Because at the end of the day, right, the people who are complaining about foreigners aren't really complaining about foreigners. They're complaining about groups of foreigners. They're complaining about the Basotho with the violence and the guns. They're complaining about the Zimbabweans and how they come and use resources. And then lastly, they're complaining about the Mozambicans. They don't complain about the Namibians. They don't complain about the Congolese. I've never heard somebody complaining about the Kenyans. I heard there's a huge community of Kenyans in South Africa, and nobody ever complains about them. And so we must also discuss how, like people like the Nigerians, right? People always say, yeah, Nigerians are the scapegoat. But if you look at the South Asian countries, there are countries that have like 6-month bans for Nigerians, right? Say, no, in these 6 months, Nigerians can't come, right? Dubai, for instance, had a similar ban to say in the next 7 months, Nigerian males from the ages of 16 to 35 can't come into Dubai, right? And so if you're thinking about that, it means there's a bad guest element to it. And so this whole xenophobia thing is also valid, but then also it's a guilt card in the single narrative for South Africans to say, yeah, you hate yourself, you hate Africans. But when in actual fact, we must get a nuanced perspective of everything to say, who are the people complaining, one, and what are they complaining about, and what groups are they complaining about? Because Aaron Motsoaledi, on the other hand, right, he isn't complaining about either of these people. He's complaining about the Bangladeshis, Pakistanis, and the Somalians who own shops in the townships. That's who he's focusing on in his raids on his department. Whenever people are arrested, it's Bangladeshi nationals getting names like Thabo Mofokeng and all of those things. And so you think about it, there's a bad guest element to it.
There is, and I'm going to read just quickly from an article that features Aaron Motsoaledi when he spoke in 2018 on this matter. He said foreign nationals are burdening the South African health system. On the second day of Labour Union National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union Nurses Summit in Johannesburg, the summit looked at issues that nurses are facing, blah, 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 blah. It goes on to say, more hospitals and clinics are needed to accommodate all the local and foreign patients. He says South Africa needs to relook at this. Apparently, the majority of people going into clinics in South Africa are foreigners. That's according to...
And this is at the time when he was still the Minister of Health.
Correct. That was the
still the Minister of Health. Because now he's at...
So we've got to navigate this carefully, because if all those places are being taken up by foreigners, if our infrastructure is being used, and again, I've got to differentiate here between the illegal immigrants and the people who are allowed to be here because they've gone through the right processes, and whether they're trying to become citizens or they're just migrant laborers or whatever they might be. If they've done it right, we don't have an argument with them, right? I mean, as a country, we should be providing care to anyone who's legitimately in the country, even if they're just here on holiday. If we have a limited amount of resource available, we have to look after it.
This is the thing, right? And it seems like a theme for me today. But this is the thing about the rabbits, is there are a whole number of issues. And as Leeto rightly pointed some of them out, right? And all of those, so the ones that are being allowed to overrun, the rabbits that are being allowed to overrun the narrative and the media and are the ones that take, so Operation Dudula, for instance, right? Can you believe the amount of airtime Operation Dudula gets in the national press?
Amazing.
Amount of airtime. Weeks ago, the whole Operation Dudula thing started. I remember hearing the comments and somebody said very disparaging about Ntlatalaks. When I said that he's like a fire that's been made with papers and is going to fizzle out very soon. And today we stand and he has been disavowed by the Operation Dudula people. He must be somewhere sucking his finger in the fetal position in a corner somewhere, because now not having any media. And he, at the time, he was everywhere. He was on every radio station. He was on every TV station.
We tried to get him on, and he was too busy for us.
I'm sure he'll come on if you asked him now. But he's missing the limelight. This is the rabbit that is allowed to, the Kalafong Hospital story that you talk about, right? With the EFF and the altercations. Where were the police? Operation Dudula is allowed to absolutely demonstrate. They can demonstrate outside that hospital, but there should have been a police presence to keep them in check. What kind of, where do they get the authority to be checking people that are walking in and out of the gates to say, what is this? Are you like, what bullshit is that? Where were the police? But the rabbit is Operation Dudula and EFF have altercations, and we're not talking about the failure, the systemic failure of the police and policing system and keeping the country in check, right? We're not talking about that for this week. We're just talking about Operation Dudula and the EFF. We're not. Then we have the video by Poppy Ramathuba, right? MEC.
Yeah, she's the MEC for Limpopo Health.
Yes, health in Limpopo. Huge rabbit. Now everybody is asking, what she's supposed to do? Could she? Why is she doing this? Yes, the foreigners are a problem. Where is the video of fucking Poppy telling of her comrades in their policy conferences about what is their foreign policy? What is their foreign policy, and why is it that we are reaping the quiet diplomacy of their foreign policy around our neighbors, Zimbabwe in particular? That is what we are reaping today. Where's her video of outrage about that? Where's her video of outrage about the policing failing at the border? Where is that video of outrage? Right? But no, the foreigners, and yes, Poppy was right, and maybe this is being distracted from the absolute failure that Cyril Ramaphosa and his entire cabinet are. That is what we are distracted from. So no one is having the conversation that Cyril Ramaphosa is actually a failure. That Cyril Ramaphosa, again, because people thought the Ramaphoria has now worn out, and people cannot stand and say, maybe we were wrong. Maybe it is not who leads this party that is the problem. It is this party that is the problem.
So we've got just a few minutes left, and I want to hear what both of you have to say about opposition politics and coalition politics, because there was an interesting research survey which I sent to you yesterday, Pumi, from the Social Research Foundation about the opinions of registered voters in South Africa about coalition politics. So voter perceptions of a coalition future, most people strongly agree, and smaller groups somewhat agree, somewhat disagree, and strongly disagree. But it seems that the majority of people in the country seem to have a positive view of a coalition future. However, among those people, the group that has the worst view of this are the DA and ActionSA, which is interesting. ActionSA has got the worst view of coalitions. And the DA. Now, these are the two groups who probably need to be part of any coalition, and yet they have a poor view of what might happen there. The parties who seem most in favor of coalitions are the ANC, EFF, Freedom Front Plus are the highest, and then all other registered voters, which is about 60.8% of the total. There are also a couple other interesting graphs here. The political market for coalitions is one that I saw as well. Voters who strongly are in favor of coalitions as necessary and the future and support the idea of a grand coalition are by far the majority of the population here. Certainly in this group that was surveyed, it's just under 50% of people think that is what the future is, which is a majority in this group, because everyone who says no, they're very negative to the idea of coalitions. That only makes up about 8 or 9% of the total. So what do you guys think the future is when it comes to coalitions? Because we've seen them fall apart, we've seen them work.
For me, right, the coalitions that are along narrow lines, so DA, ActionSA, DA and Mampela Rampela's party, like all of those ones, right? Ahang, yes. All of those are along like these narrow lines. EFF, PAC will never work. EFF, ANC actually will also never work. And so actually what we need to be thinking about is those diametrically opposed coalitions, EFF and Freedom Front Plus, because I think there the compromises necessary for actual change will be made, right? Where we know ideologically we don't like you, but we need to serve somebody that we do like, the South Africans and their votes. Because right now what you see falling apart is is the coalitions that are closely aligned. Somebody throws a jab, Steenhuisen says, oh, all the other parties are weak, we're the best. And the next week, ActionSA is saying, we're thinking of going out of this coalition. And so if you think about it, one jab from the ones who are closely aligned is actually saying it's like a faction of the same party. And so the factionalism, the nature of the faction in and of itself creates a sort of like a maelstrom that you're gonna at the end just gonna be swallowed up by. And so I think the diametrically opposed parties must start thinking about each other in very friendly terms and see how their compromises would actually help South Africans.
Well, that's why parliaments are captured in a semicircle like this, and the people on the far left are closest to the people on the far right, because actually their ideologies, the motivations for the ideologies might be different, but their ideologies are actually very close to each other. But the thing for me about coalitions, and I know why the ANC or people who vote for the ANC are strongly in favor of coalitions, because one of two things is going to happen in 2024. The ANC is either going to lose or it is going to win. And if it loses, they are already thinking about what they need to do to keep their power. And that's what a coalition would be for them, right? The DA, do you remember that there was that voice note that was making the rounds of a presentation that Helen Zille did, where she was talking about a strong opposition and that the DA really needs to consider how it can be a strong opposition and build up, because even for her at the time, she was talking about how she cannot see the DA getting over more than 20% of the vote. And therefore, they need to use that 20% of theirs effectively to push their policies. So I can see why they would think about coalitions, because they cannot see themselves as a governing party, right? So that's why they don't behave that way. When you talk about with my marketing hat and communications hat on, they are quite happy to be a challenger brand, and they cannot see themselves as a brand that is a number one brand. That's a problem. So I can see why they would want to get into a coalition. But I think one of the things that's the biggest problems for South Africans is none of these guys, other than the ANC, and they use our money and other people's money to talk about, to talk about what they think their policies are, that they think it's things that we want to hear. We don't hear enough about what any of these other people's policies are. Therefore, even as we think about coalitions, we're not quite sure what they are coalescing.
Yeah, that's true.
Behind,
and some
right?
of these
we don't
parties,
hear enough of it.
these parties aren't even engaged in policy discussion. They're really just out there spreading rhetoric and trying their best to just win the vote. After the vote, their work is done.
And the way they're trying to win the vote is by telling us that they are not the ANC. And people are kind of going, yeah, you're not the ANC, but what really are you? What do you stand for? Yeah. We just want the ANC out.
And the reason why the ANC loves coalitions as well is that they buy coalition partners with positions. So the ANC doesn't come to a coalition and say, hey, Gareth, so what does your party think about South Africa? They say, listen, Gareth, if you give us these votes, we're going to make you mayor in that city there. We're going to make you municipal manager here. We're going to make you that. And that's the reason why Cope was throwing hands the other day, right? Was because they were fighting over the scraps of the ANC. And these smaller parties, this is the direction they're going. They had like this old man who looked like he had 4 or 5 20-year-old kids saying, I'm the leader of the youth movement. Why was I not invited? And there's an old man also telling us, yeah, I had cancer, almost died, but don't worry. I'm fine, I'm fresh. I'm still going to represent you. And so the way in which South African parties in and of themselves operate needs to change. Because you can't have Terrell telling us that he nearly died of cancer, but don't worry, I'm fresh. I'm skinny not because I nearly died, but because I jog every day. And so all of those small little things, the parties are not operating. Like my favorite parties to talk to you about, to show you what South African parties are the UDM and COPE. If you want to see what a South African party is, look at those two. Bantu Holomisa is not recruiting anyone for any purpose to come and dethrone him. Terra Lekota is happy holding a rally in a tent somewhere in a neighborhood. He's happy. He's content with that. And so that's the South African politician we're dealing with. The run-of-the-mill South African politician is not Julius Malema. He's not boisterous. He's not trying to talk about anything. He's not trying to challenge the system. They're just trying to make it into parliament. ACDP's leader, the Reverend. Reverend is also... Kenneth Misha only talks about not teaching children about sex and abortion. And then him and his wife go there gallivanting to the parliament every time.
Yeah.
His wife is present every time. Every time parliament sits.
Where's the PAC?
Every time parliament sits. Our PAC is actually the PAC. The PAC has five NECs. 5. If you get it, I'm daring you now. Come try to get the PAC here with you. You will have 40 people on this live stream now.
You know, they are the ones that brought the motion of no confidence against the speaker here in Joburg. And the motion carried because of the coalition with the smaller parties. So I'm just saying, come the PAC at your own peril.
Guys, we're out of
respect on their name.
We're out of time, but it was worth those extra few minutes to hear Leeto go on about Musiwa Lekota and Bantu Holomisa. All right, we will see you soon. Leeto, very good to have you back, and we'll catch up. We were meant to talk a little bit more about Velkom, but we'll get to that in a future episode. Thanks for your time this morning. Pumi, we will see you next week.
We love you.
Bye, guys.